coach, and this is my channel, Thrive, Don't Survive. Thank you so much for being here again. Today we have Brooke with us. She is a coach as well, and I'm gonna give her the chance to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vera, for having me here on your show. Obviously, I am a trauma healing mentor, a rapid transformational therapist, and NLP practitioner. So I really help empower women to shatter their chains of, their childhood trauma, abusive relationships, so that they can really create healthy relationships for themselves, but also kind of reclaim their true self and end the cycles of abuse, end the childhood trauma to really reclaim their lives again after this really difficult process, because that's really my story. I think it's such an important thing right now. We're seeing a lot of women being stuck in relationships that are not healthy, and it's really about creating a different foundation of yourself to know that you deserve more and healing, so that you can become really clear on the path forward.
That's amazing. I love that. That is my story too. That's how
There
I
you go.
heard. Yeah, I healed my childhood traumas and the visions and the limiting beliefs that I used to have about myself. And then that's how I was able to go from, the victim mindset to the protagonist mindset where I control everything. So that's so nice and I love that. So what's your story? What can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, so my story really started obviously when I talk about childhood trauma. That was really my experience. I was sexually abused at a very young age, like 3 or 4 years old,
So,
and was also raised in a cult. So within that cult, it was very shaming, it was fear-based, but again, it was all I ever knew. So, and it was all my parents ever knew. They were just kind of carrying on the theme of what their parents had told them. And within that structure, my father was also very narcissistically abusive. So it was like, he liked control, he liked things just so. And within this cult, you needed to be the perfect example. And that is what, we were taught as kids. Like, you need to act a certain way, you need to be a certain way. So we were taught how to dress, how to think, what to think, how to feel, like who we were supposed to be. And I never really got the chance to like become who I wanted to be. And I was always the different kid because we weren't allowed to celebrate holidays. I wasn't allowed to be friends with anyone outside of the society or the cult system. And so it was like this experience of thinking everybody on the outside was bad or evil, and that everybody on the inside were the only safe people in the world. So I grew up feeling like, you know, not really having the relational skills or the social skills because we were only within that system. Um, and that experience made me then recreate the same type of experience for myself in a marriage, which was an abusive marriage, and then stayed in that for 17 years and in this cult system. So, obviously there's a lot more there to it, so much trauma and so much emotional baggage that I kind of carried with me through all these years. But then I finally woke up one day and I said, okay, I don't want to live like this anymore. This is not who I am. I don't want to be this. I don't even know who I am. But nothing was feeling like it should be. And so I started to question everything. I questioned my relationships. I broke free from that. And then we started to question the cult as well. So my partner and I at that time started to question that as well. And so I started to go on this discovery journey to realize that that is what it was. And much to my surprise, I didn't, and anger, I realized, oh my gosh, I lived 35 years of my life in this cult system, and it really held me back in life. It didn't let me do the things that I wanted to do, like go to college and find who I really was, become like even know what authenticity or my truest self was, because I had always been told who I needed to be, not who I was allowed to discover who I wanted to be. So there's kind of a lot of there, but that's kind of the beginning of this journey.
Wow, that is so powerful. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. It sounds
Oh, thank you.
like a lot. I myself am also a victim of sexual abuse a few times in my childhood or in my teens. So I know that how hard that is and how you get sucked into, it was your fault and, all these things that people make you believe or even yourself because you don't talk about it. But that's so interesting that you were in a cult and the lack of identity, right, that you get from that. And that's so courageous of you to, be out of it. And I assume that that was a very hard thing to do, right? Because that's probably like did you get persecuted afterwards or something like that? Was it hard to get out?
It was because I realized if I left, I was going to lose my family and the friends.
Hmm.
So, and I thought there was a time there where I thought, oh, maybe I can hold on to both of these. But then our interests were not aligned anymore. Our belief system was not aligned. And in that cult system, you're trained to shun people or, not associate with people that do leave that system. So I really knew that ultimately I was going to lose my family. And I did. I don't have any contact with my parents or the family that's still within that cult system. And then I also don't have any of those friendships that I grew up with because they also abandoned me. So it was like complete rejection, complete abandonment, and being like, okay, well, I'm just kind of like thrown out here into the world all alone, and I've got to figure it out. Right, I gotta figure it out, and I think that's the piece of it, it's like that it was scary, and I don't think I give myself enough credit of, like, how hard that really was because it was, really being like, "Okay, well, I don't really even know if I wanna be here anymore." That kinda came up in my mind, you're right, because I didn't know what to think or what to believe anymore, and I was kind of angry at God. I was like, "Well, how could I have been duped all this time?" And here I thought that I believed in this God, that he was the true God and he was protecting me, and then all of a sudden I felt betrayed. So there was a lot of pieces to that, and I really feel like my children saved my life. I had 2 boys, and I just knew that I wanted something different for them. Whatever that looked like, I didn't know what it was, but I was willing to take the time to discover that so that they could have that.
That's amazing. That's so inspirational. And how did you overcome that? How did you go from being lost and not having an identity and just everything is new and you have no idea what's ahead of you till the coach of trauma that you are today?
Yeah, you know what? I think I just really, I was a little bit going blind there for a little bit. Yeah, it's like bumping into things and trying to figure things out. But I was blessed to find a partner after my divorce that I ran into, which I really feel like was so like divine guidance because he really helped support me on this healing journey. I don't know if I would have been able to do it as efficiently as I have, if I would have been all alone. Because there was this space where it was able to hold space for me, but not enable me, right? It
Mm,
was able for me to see that something was wrong and that there was such thing as a safe partner. There is such thing as unconditional love. Like it was like learning these new concepts that I had never understood before because previously, everybody's love was conditional. I lost all those people. And now I was able to experience the opposite, which was such a gift. And I feel like then I started to realize, okay, I'm going to need support. And it's not going to just be this man. I'm going to have to really face what's going on inside of me. I'm going to have to really face the darkness and the trauma and the belief systems that have created me until now and kind of unravel these so that I can really rewrite my narratives and rewrite my story. And that's when I started to, I went to therapy. I quickly found that traditional talk therapy kept me stuck. Um, and so I started to go to coaches and I found mentors and I found spirituality mentors. Like other concepts that could help me open up my mind to experience things in a different way. And personal development, I realized very quickly, was something that I was like, this is where the gold is. Like this is where like the fun part of life and the journey is all held for us is this. And we seek so much stuff outside of us, but it's really about just getting to know ourselves.
Yes, that is
And
so true.
yeah, yeah, and I feel like that is like a powerful thing to be able to just, gosh, sit with yourself and like love the way that you feel about you and the thoughts that you have and how you change your life by recognizing where am I still stuck? How am I still talking to myself? And then I realized how abusive I was to my own self when you started to pay attention to the voices in your head.
Mhm. Yes, that's a big part of my programs. It's rewriting the narrative, the inner self-talk, the limiting beliefs, because it's usually not us. And I think we have similar, I think yours is like a little higher, but I was raised to be guilty. Like everything is my fault. If something doesn't work, it's my fault. If my brother hits me, it's my fault. If like if I'm not protected, it's my fault. If everything was my fault. So then that's the voice that I have as an adult. And it's
Mhm.
not so much as to like, oh, it's never gonna be that way anymore and you're gonna change it. It's more like, okay, I see how I'm like my automatic self-talk is, and it's guilt, guilt, guilt. So either, I choose to act on it or I choose to rewrite it in the moment and be nicer to myself as if it was my children or my best friends or, just out of love and compassion. And that's just so powerful because you become so much more confident and, your confidence is not relying on anything exterior. Like you said, it's interior, it's inside of you. And so nobody can manipulate it or change it. Or, if you put it in outside things, it's just so unstable. But if it's inside of you and you're able to do that work, which is hard and it takes like balls and it's a lot of hard work and pain. But I always say it's almost like waxing. It's like, okay, one big pain and then you're all nice and soft.
Yeah.
So I think that's my experience in the self-talk, and that's so powerful. I love that. And so what were the main tools or the main aha moments for you for your transformation?
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest piece was learning that the foundation of everything is related to the nervous system. Learning polyvagal theory, discovering that in that work for myself was the biggest piece of healing from all of that very complex trauma. You know, Complex PTSD is not like recognized, but there are people that do recognize that. I actually had a therapist that did in 2017. She told me, she goes, yeah, you have complex PTSD. And that kind of opened the door for me to like go on this discovery process, like, well, what the hell is that? Like, what does that even mean? And the more that I started to read and understand, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like from coming out of severe, situations where you're always in fear, like the body and the nervous system remember everything
Mhm.
and it doesn't understand time. So it's just remembering how what your experience of this life has been. If it's been fearful and it's been you've got to watch your back and you don't know when you're going to get hit next, or you don't know when, it's like your body's still like feeling and remembering all those things. And that's why, Vessel, I can never say his name, but he's The Body Keeps the Score, the famous book, I'm sure you've read it, right? Makes so much sense for complex trauma survivors to recognize that, okay, you heal this foundational piece of yourself, your nervous system. This is your gateway to thriving.
Mm.
And that's really what I found in my own journey.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, my programs are called Emotional Freedom. So it's
Mhm.
basically you need to heal and then work on habits to stop being fight or flight all the time so that you can, enjoy your life instead of being fearful all the time, because
Yeah.
fear and every emotion, they're there for a reason, and it's helpful, but they don't know that sometimes it's just a string on the road instead of a snake. So you have that ability to, like, okay, that was just this. It scared me, but then it's not going to ruin my day. I'm just going to keep walking, instead of just like, oh my God, and like ruining everything because you had a hard emotion. So I feel like there's a lot of work to do right now in our society where everything is so fast and we have so much information, and it's we're always fight or flight, and we don't realize, and we're on the automatic instead of the conscious. So the more you're present and the more you're able to just like be okay with being bored and just learning how to navigate the waves of life, then your nervous system is going to be regulated, and then all that somatic stress and all these things are, you can even be less sick. You can have less autoimmune disease just because you're healed, and like you're not fight or flight anymore all the time, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's so important to recognize your dominant response.
Mm-hmm.
My dominant response was flight, you know? I was constantly keeping myself busy. I was a high anxiety, high energy, which is great for if you want to be a really driven person, but you're going to eventually burn yourself out. And that's what I found that continued to keep happening. And it was like once I saw that pattern, I was like, oh my gosh, something's got to change. I've got to change this pattern. This is not okay. And everybody has their dominant go-to response when there's
Mm-hmm.
stress, when there's trauma, when there's things that are overwhelming. And it's getting really in tune and touch with your body. I feel like it's just such a big piece of that healing too, connecting to that nervous system so you can see the awareness of when you are triggered. Okay, well, is this actually real fear or is this actually, am I okay? Can I come back to safety on my own? Has been really beautiful to recognize how, your body tries to hold it all together, but you also can kind of help navigate that process a little bit more because story always follows state. So if you're in a certain state of your nervous system, right, then the stories are going to pop up of why you think of what is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can all just be nonsense and fear-based and really not any truth to it.
That is so powerful. Yeah, I always say that a trigger is a gem. It tells you what you need to work on more than the other person. Oh, they're so mean, and no, why is it bothering me? If it's not true, why is it bothering me? If it's true, why is it bothering me? Like, and so then you get better and you understand your reactions, and then the next time you can, act in another way, or even like get to know yourself better so that you can navigate it. Yeah, that's so powerful. Love that.
Completely.
And so what would you say, for example, my biggest change was, like I said at the beginning, switching that victim mindset of like, everything, and everything did happen to me. I was I migrated to two places. I had to start over after being, I had PTSD from being in a dictatorship, from having sexual abuse, from, not being protected as a child, from physical abuse, from all these things. And so I was stuck in this mindset of like, I'm the victim, everything happens to me. I'm never going to win, like earn enough money like an American does. I'm never going to find a husband. I'm never going to live a happy life. I'm doomed, and then with the coaching tools, I switched that mindset and I changed my attitude towards life. And I was able to um, do everything out of gratitude instead of wanting more, instead, like uh, accepting and stop resisting, and also like being grateful for what I have while I build what I want. So that was like my biggest switch. What was your biggest switch from the person you were in the cult to the person you are now?
I think gratitude is huge. I really resonate with that, because I used to be very angry, right? Like, and it's like angry that this happened to me, and why did this happen to me? And it's like, well, I think those are all really valid feelings. Don't get me wrong. They are, because, those things are difficult and it does suck to have to go through them.
For sure.
It was more of like switching the fact, okay, well, this happened. So acceptance, like you talked about, and then being able to say, what can I learn from this? What
Mm,
can I learn? What can I learn about myself? What is this teaching me? And I did that really with every person in my life, with my mother, with my father, with my ex, like, and I just recognized, okay, what did each of these people teach me about myself? And when I could look at things with that perspective instead of what did you do to me, or blaming, or any of those things, it made me see, okay, well, you know what? They made me really resilient. They made me realize that I need to realize my own worth and that I am enough. They made me, like, there's all these positive things that you can kind of gain from even the most negative, dark experiences. And I feel like that is when you take those and you just look at them like, okay, well, you know what? I wouldn't be here right now, sitting here talking to you, if I hadn't experienced all of those things,
mhm,
and it's just, yeah, it's just looking things with presence and
mhm.
gratitude and from a higher perspective.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say like I wish none of that happened to me or to you, but it did.
Yeah.
So, the acceptance is really key because we keep resisting and we don't do it on purpose, but we're trying to change it. We try to be like, how can I change my parents? How can I change what happened to me? How can I make the person that hurt me make amends? But in reality, we can't control anyone else, and the forgiveness needs to come from us. And once you stop resisting and you start accepting, everything changes. So, yeah, I feel I resonate a lot with that. What would you say to a person that tells you, because I've heard this so many times, I had a beautiful childhood. I have no childhood
Mhm.
trauma.
Wow. I actually have had that happen before. And we went into session in hypnosis. And we were able to access a whole bunch of memories that she didn't even recognize were even there, didn't even remember them. Um, and I just want everybody to know that the brain is fascinating. The brain will hide what is too overwhelming for you to process or to understand.
Mhm.
I have in my own personal experience, because the sexual abuse I didn't remember till much later in life. So when my body began to feel more safe as I was doing my healing journey, I had always known something had happened to me. I always would, acknowledge that. I told other people about it, but I didn't know who the perpetrator was, because the perpetrator was someone that should have been safe to me. The perpetrator was someone that, as a little girl, should have been somebody that I would have never, ever hurt me like that.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm talking about when the brain is fascinating, because the brain will hide what is too overwhelming for the body to process, or the mind to process.
Mm,
Because if I would have known, right, perhaps later on in life or whatnot, maybe I wouldn't have been able to handle that. Maybe I wasn't ready, right? My body wasn't ready for that. My mind wasn't ready for that. And it didn't come up until much later. But then I remembered everything and was able to access everything through hypnosis, and realize that that was the original root cause of my suffering, of my pain, of why I was stuck, of why I accepted less than I deserved.
mhm.
Um, all of these things, having that type of trauma in the body. And so it's just recognizing, you know what? We all have trauma.
Yes.
Big T trauma, but some is little t trauma, right? We literally, it's impossible for anybody not to have something that is limiting them, and something that's not, there's always something holding you back because
Mhm.
ultimately your brain says, if you go and do this, this is a threat and it means you're not safe. And so it's just so important for us to learn, how the mind works.
Mhm.
It can be tricky, right? It can hide those things from you that ultimately may be why you're stuck.
Mhm. Yes, 100%. I agree with that. I think I had that dissociation experience, like when things were happening to me, like I would look at myself from the outside, not so it's
Mm.
not the regular one where you just go away and you don't remember. It's more like you look at yourself in the third person. That happened to me like two big moments. And I feel like I still like yesterday I had a therapy session and I remembered something new that I didn't know because something triggered that memory right
Yeah.
now because I feel like I was more prepared to see it now and it's like whoa, but I've never done hypnosis, and I'm so interested like how it works, and I know people swear by it, and I've done one that was um ancestor therapy,
Mhm.
which I think it's kind of like hypnosis where you close your eyes and they just guide you through it. And there were so many aha things about it. And I think that's how I got to accept my reality in just one session. It was like, okay, I get it now and I'm gonna stop resisting it. Justice can't be made anymore. It already happened. Uh,
Yeah.
but what can you tell me about hypnosis? Like, how does it work and why is it so efficient?
Yeah, it is really powerful. The method that I've learned, it's RTT, which is rapid transformational therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with Marissa Peer's work,
Mhm.
but it is phenomenal for getting to the root cause of a reason, and understanding so that the brain can process and find the stories that have been created around this
Mm,
particular issue, and being able to release and really rewire the brain. And that's ultimately what we're wanting to do. Hypnosis lets you dip in outside of your conscious mind, okay, which is right now where we're in our awareness, where we're talking, right? Right now we're using our conscious mind, where we're using our cognitive ability. Hypnosis is working with the subconscious mind, where is all your original programming from 0 to 7. It is how you are operating your life today.
mm,
So if you don't know what's really going on in that subconscious mind, you're just hitting the surface level, right? Of your experience of what's really happening, of what's really going on, and you're not actually hitting the core beliefs, the core wounds in its entirety, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So it's like being able to access those things and move things so much more quickly. And that's why I became the RTT hypnotherapist, because it changed my life truly. And
Mhm,
so I said, I want this for every other person, because a lot of people are like, hypnosis, that sounds so scary, right? Or, oh
mhm,
my gosh, I'm not going to let anybody control my mind. This is not that at all, right? It's not that experience. It's actually being able to kind of open up the doorway to your experiences in a different way, being able to process emotionally the things that you wouldn't be able to do right now as we were talking. And
mm,
that's why I said traditional talk therapy keeps you stuck,
mhm, mhm,
because you're just talking about your problems, but you're not actually getting to the root cause, processing them, and then completely being free of them.
mm,
Right. So I think that's why I say, for everybody, this is where the power is.
I love that. I would say that that session, I don't know if that was hypnosis, but that changed my life. And I think I believe in like a hybrid system for myself. For other people, I don't know. I'm a coach, so my clients only have a coach. Some people do have both. I like both. I like therapy and I like coaching because therapy is like you analyze, what happened to you, at least my therapist, and your childhood traumas and all of this, but you stay stuck in there. And then the coaching, which I also have coaches, basically gets you out of it. Okay, what can I do now to not repeat the same pattern, and how can I just be better now? And they give you a plan and they give you, like a solution as opposed to just keep talking about it. But I
Yeah.
feel like I don't know. I like the hybrid of everyone, and I feel like everyone is different, and they all need different things. But But yeah, so can you do hypnosis online?
Yeah, that's pretty much the majority of my business. I do it in person as well, but I do it mostly online. And I do a hybrid approach too, right? I do the hypnosis and there's obviously coaching within it. And I think it's a very powerful way to get like, processing your trauma, but also being able to now navigate it, right? And having the foundational tools so that you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to bring up all this trauma from my subconscious and not have something to integrate and a plan, right,
Mhm.
to move forward through it. So I think that's the biggest piece. And it's like when you begin to actually rewire the subconscious and your belief system on a deeper level like that, your transformation is really much faster than you possibly could think. And that's what my clients experience. They're
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, I'm a different person from 6 months ago. And this is, this is crazy, right? And they can actually see it's actually something tangible that they're able to see and witness in themselves. And I think that's huge.
Yes, it is. I think I have the same experience with my with mine, and it's like they did years of therapy, years of psychiatrists or pills or anything, and then they do coaching with me, and it's like, oh my God, I'm another person, and it's crazy how getting the tools to do that and also doing it for yourself can change so quickly. We think that we're stuck forever and that I think that's the last generation, right? Where they were like, I am the way I am and you have to suck it up. And now it's like, no, I want to be better. Like if you tell me I am the way I am, I'm like red flag. Like we can always improve. Let's do better.
Completely.
Yeah, I love that. So, what would you say to our audience? Um, what's your advice for them to go from surviving to thriving?
First, and what I said earlier is the foundational piece of your nervous system. Identify where you're stuck and how you are operating day to day. And then you can go from there. It's all about awareness, right? How am I feeling in my body? How do I deal with stress, right? What's my go-to nervous system response when there's a conflict or stress, right? Just identifying these really honestly, they're simple things. We just don't take the time. We don't take the time in our busy life. We keep going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And even the busiest of mothers can do this.
Mm,
Okay. Even you guys can do this, right? And then this is something that, all of us have access to and can do because we actually have, it's free. You have access right now to this very moment where you can take a deep breath, you can close your eyes, and you can check in with yourself. Oh, how am I feeling?
mm,
Going on in my body, right? Like this is just the connection piece that's so foundational because otherwise you're just going to keep surviving.
100%.
Keep
Yes.
doing the same thing that you did last year and you're going to stay stuck.
Exactly. Yes. I have a client. She has three kids and two have autism. And at first it was like, this, how am I going to change? Nothing's going to change. My kids are not going to change. And she changed. And I was like, wow, like the people that are like, I can't, I'm a mom. It's impossible. That's a limiting belief. You can. Everyone can.
Yes, I know. It's totally, I love that.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Brooke, for being here. I am so proud of you for your journey, and I admire you for being so brave and stepping out of your comfort zone and like growing so much and being here and talking about it and being vulnerable and opening and sharing it with us and with me. And so thank you so much for coming. And I'll leave your handles in the description. And I am so grateful for you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me on. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation.
Me too.